enough feedback to actually start working on establishing an O-STEM chapter. The first meeting will be tomorrow at 4 p.m. in the Brown Copel Student Achievement Center. I believe room 2133. We will use that meeting to establish a membership and try to put together an executive committee that will write up a constitution and bylaws to be approved after the Christmas break. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to utilize open forum at this time? All right. So we're now moving to roll call. Senators, please pick up your eye clickers and click in. Click A. All right, so
I used Kennedy's.
You're good.
all right, so the minutes were set out electronically. I know there were some corrections that were made to the minutes. Were there any specific corrections that need to be made from last week's minutes? Seeing none, they are approved and corrected. Now moving to reports. I don't think we have any officers. I think we're still at the dinner, so we're moving to colleges immediately, starting with at large. Okay. Agriculture.
Hawkins Agriculture. So I and Master is having an information session on December 4th and 6th at 5 p.m. in Kramer 109. And so also like college engineering, biosystems engineers can also apply for this, and then education and agriculture educators can apply. So but yeah, that's
Business.
Sadie Business, thank you, Mr. President. Just want to let everybody know the Financial Management Association is opening their recruiting for the upcoming year. We have a recruiting info session tomorrow afternoon at 5 o'clock in Horton Hargrave Hall, 3018. So please tell your friends about it. It'd be great to make an appearance. It goes a long way to meet some of the executive members and current members of that organization. Also, Microsoft is in town this week. If you or any of your friends have an interest, and this could be from any major, please reach out to any of the business majors. We do have the information of the representative in town that can help you set up a meeting with them. Thanks.
CADC.
No report.
COSAM.
No report.
Education.
No report.
Engineering.
No report.
Ocean and Wildlife.
No report.
Human Sciences.
No report.
Liberal Arts.
No report.
Nursing.
No report.
Pharmacy. Pharmacy. No report. Oh, my bad. That man.
Sure, that met. I just wanted to say that our accreditation site visit went really, really well. And then our Dean of Academic Affairs just got hired as the Dean of the vet school at Virginia, Maryland. It's a really big deal. It's like 28 vet schools in the country. So I know a few of you guys work with him on different curriculum committees and stuff like that. So if you see him, give him a good congrats from us.
So now we're going to committee reports, starting with academic affairs.
Dental engineering. So the meeting with the Career Center went really well. We did that right before Thanksgiving break. So we got some really good feedback on interview excuses from them. And then next week at Up All Night, we'll be doing some surveying to gather feedback for interview excuses, just to see what the students want the most out of this. And so we might be sending some sign-up sheets to get involved with that. So be on the lookout for that throughout the week. Thank you.
Budget and finance.
Sadie Business. Thank you all who came out to the fall feast. Kudos to Senator Nunn for getting that passed through the reserve fund request, or the program expansion fund that went through. We saw student activity fee go towards a great event, so thank you there. We are continuing with our budget tracking sheets with our different student activity organizations, and our representatives are working hard with that and making necessary code changes as well. Thanks.
Code of laws.
Board Liberal Arts. So the bills that are coming through tonight, we had been passed unanimously through my committee. And I also would like to make a motion to move future orders B through D to current orders.
moved and seconded to, move these into current orders of business. Is there any debate?
Can we go ahead and, are we moving all of them?
Yeah, she made a motion from B to D. There's been a motion made to move, B to D, those to current orders of business from future orders.
Are we moving them all tonight?
Yes, from B to D, B to D, B, C, and D, yes.
Sorry, A, B, C, D, and E. Are we moving them at a later date?
Oh, what do you mean? Is it like
No.
no. You made the motion for B, C, and D,
B,
correct?
C, and D. Those are election law changes that have to be put in place within a certain amount of time, so that's why we're moving those up.
Second.
Is there any other debate? You good?
Sorry.
All right, seeing no one, I'll move to the all in favor of moving those to the current orders of business, please say aye, click A. All opposed? The ayes have it, those will be voted on.
Okay, hang on, sorry, I had a technical difficulty there. If y'all want to click,
All those in favor, please say aye, click A.
sorry.
All opposed?
Okay, I clicker just froze up and it's freaking out, but it looks like it's about to, I clicked start a bunch of times, it looks like it's about to.
Yeah.
Is it working out? Alright, cool. Like 2 more.
All right, so yeah, those will now be voted on this evening. Is that all?
That's all.
All right. Inclusion and diversity.
Alternate Chris Sam. So having a meeting with Dr. Gaiman this week finally, excited about that to talk about the need-based scholarships. I'll have an update for y'all on that after the break. And then just a reminder for my committee to meet with me for a few after Senate tonight so we can discuss some things. Hope y'all have a great break.
Student affairs.
Fulton Tech Large. I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving break. The Student Affairs Committee has identified 2 locations that we would like to see those illuminated lights displayed, and we've reached out to Jacob McGee's team, and I will give you all an update after we've heard back from them. Thank you all.
Happy Merry Christmas. Okay, freshman committee.
No report.
Zach.
Huntley, Human Sciences. All right, y'all, I hope that you all had a great Thanksgiving break. We know that all of you are preparing to take your finals next week, so with that, there will be no office hours due this week. So take that time to study, really finish the semester strong, and enjoy your Christmas break. But please keep in mind that we have Priority 1 as well as Up All Night coming up this week. So please make plans to sign up for those, because I know that they're going to need all hands on deck to make those events a success. Also keep in mind that this week is the last Senate exec meeting of the semester. Everybody has to attend at least one, otherwise you will be given a half of an absence, so please make plans to be there. It's this Thursday night at 7 p.m. and conference room B of Student Enrollment Suite. So please go and mark your calendars to be there as well. And last thing for me, this has been something I've been talking about for weeks, but the project to streamline office hours, please make sure that you've been talking with your school's councils and finding a time and a place to conduct those next semester. I'll be sending a Google form out in my email tomorrow for you to submit that information of what your office hours are going to look like for the spring. So please fill that out by this Friday afternoon, but I'll be sending out that email tomorrow. Last thing for me, the office hours that y'all conducted the week before Thanksgiving break, I'll be sending out emails about who did not complete those tomorrow, because I didn't want to flood y'all's inbox as you were enjoying your Thanksgiving break with your family. So best of luck with finals and have a great break.
So that concludes committee reports. We're now moving to liaisons. Student veterans.
No report.
ISO.
No report.
Honors.
No report.
That's it. So now we're moving to current orders of business. So Mr. Tapscott begins reading.
PSSB 19-1202-01 Procedure, Chapter 1206.
It's brought by Senator Willoughby.
I have no additional changes to this bill, so we can pass it as written.
Okay, is there any debate? Seeing no one, I'll move to a vote. All in favor of passing this resolution, please say aye. Click A. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it, and this bill is adopted.
PSSB 19-1202-02, Chapter 702.1 Code Correction.
Brought by Senator Dismukes. this is now voting on the amendment. All in favor of amending this legislation as to what the motion we just made, please say aye. Click A. All opposed? The ayes have it, these amendments are carried, so now we'll go back to conversation on the bill itself. Is there any debate? Seeing no one, I'll move to a vote. All in favor of passing this legislation, please say aye. Click A. All opposed? The ayes have it, and this bill is adopted.
We've heard a couple more on that one.
If you want to put it in A one more time.
PSSB 19120203, Chapter 500.15 Code Correction.
I move to pass this bill.
Is there any debate? Seeing no one, I'll move to a vote. All in favor of passing this bill, please say aye. Click A. All opposed? Ayes have it, this bill is adopted.
PSSB 19120204, Chapter 304.5 Code Correction.
Sponsored by Senator Dismukes.
I move to pass this bill.
Is there any debate? Seeing no one, I'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Click A. All opposed? Ayes have it, this bill is adopted.
PSSB 19120205, Chapter 308.6 Code Correction.
It's also brought to you by Senator Dismukes.
Two amendments for this one, if we could also delete the word "or" for certified mail and then add a period to the end of the sentence.
Second.
Is there any debate on the amendment?
What was that one?
Add a period, please.
Oh, at the end, okay. Is there any other debate? Seeing no one, I'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Click A. All opposed? Okay, that was the amendment, correct? So now it's for the amendment that's passed. This will now be carried. We now move to vote on the bill all in itself. All those in favor of passing the bill, please say aye. Click A. All opposed? Ayes have it, this bill is also adopted.
PSSB 19120206, Chapter 800 Code Correction.
So I'll do by Senator Dismukes.
One more amendment for this, if we could add the word "be" before office of.
Second.
Okay, is there any debate on the amendment? Seeing no one, I move to vote all in favor of the passing amendment, or, the amendment carrying, please say aye. Click A. All opposed? And the ayes have it, and the amendment will now be carried for the rest of the, debate. Now we'll move to conversation on the bill as itself. Is there any more debate on the bill? Seeing no one, I move to vote. All in favor, please say aye. Click A. All opposed? Okay, the ayes have it, this bill is adopted.
PSSB 19120207, Liaison Position Confirmation.
It's brought to you by Senator Huntley.
Huntley, Human Sciences, so y'all heard Senator Christopher's presentation, a couple of weeks ago regarding the Honors Congress liaison position. I think our liaison positions are doing an absolutely phenomenal job, so excited to continue on with the liaison for the Honors Congress, so I'm pass this bill to her.
Any other debate? All right, seeing no one, I move to the vote. All in favor of passing this bill, please say aye. Click A. All opposed? The ayes have it, and this bill is adopted. We have the other, future orders that will move to the current order of business, so we'll move into those.
PSSB 20-011302, Code of Laws Amendments. 1009.1.14.4-1009.1.1.4.7.
It's brought to you by Senator Kramer.
Yeah, so, on this bill, we had a maximum, on the price listed here in the first section. And elsewhere in the code, it lists that you are not, allowed to give away the shirts unless they're listed as gimmicks. And just for a little background, if anybody's not familiar with, the finance part of campaigning, t-shirts can be sold and excluded from
you put it in your budget as a gimmick. And if you're not aware, t-shirts are super expensive, so they would eat up most of your budget if they were used as a gimmick. So this is kind of to benefit people who are running, so they don't have to use their entire budget on t-shirts, because as we all know, people enjoy campaigning and showing their support by wearing people's t-shirts. So just to elaborate a little bit more on that, in case anyone didn't have a chance to look over it and you're confused, this is just saying at least $1 needs to be spent on t-shirts, so it doesn't have to be a gimmick.
Is there a motion?
Not yet.
Sadie?
Sadie Business, thank you, Mr. President. Will the patron of the bill please yield to a series of questions? In terms of the dollar being paid, is there anywhere in the code that legislates or requires proof of purchase of this dollar?
Elsewhere in the code, and I will have to ask for host help on this one. Elsewhere in the code, it is stated what has to be done as far as selling shirts, but no, I'm not sure.
Because I know in 1010, I think .5.
In 1010.2.1 and then 1010.2.2, it talks about a budget record form, and along with that budget record form, has to be turned in information, which is a name, phone number, and email of the student who purchased it.
I got you. I just am trying to think of ways to, because the only thing that I'm nervous about with this legislation, and thank you for bringing it to the floor, I do see the purpose of clarifying beyond a reasonable doubt the minimum required payment. 1010.5 does say, when we speak about a gimmick being the free, something that is not purchased, I'm just worried that a candidate, maybe with a better financial backing, is going to be able to give these shirts away. And we do have the email, phone number, and everything else, but how do we know at least $1 or whatever amount was collected? And how did we come up with $1 as the amount? And is there a reasoning behind $1 being that amount?
Right, so that was a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So the first one was what? I'm sorry.
Let's go with what's your
Senator Jackson?
So I know in the fall with the missing homecoming, when we turned in our budget, it was, or in our binder, it was merely a screenshot of a Venmo, like showing that somebody paid $1. So that was one way to show proof. That was what we did. That was what Lauren Urban, the director of elections, recommended. So I'm just trying to.
Right. Is it anywhere in the code of a requirement?
Oh no, I was just providing.
So that was an additional submission y'all gave with
Yeah.
that campaign to show proof of purchase in the event there was a question.
Yeah, but I think proof of purchase was required, so I think that's why we did that.
Right.
Yeah, so you asked the people with better financial backing can give away the shirts. That's not allowed under the current system. We just don't define anything else outside of it's not allowed to be given away and here's your maximum price. And so we felt the minimum price was necessary for clarity. And the dollar amount, since we rounded the price of, the full unit price rounded to the nearest dollar, since the nearest dollar was the precedent set by the maximum, we decided that the minimum would need to be a dollar amount as well, and since 0 was off the table. I'm not sure if I left any questions unanswered.
Right. I just want to make sure that if we have a set minimum, that it's there for the reason of either fairness or equality across the board amongst the purchase of. So, I don't know, one thing we speculated about in the executive committee that I've thought a lot about, and I've honestly grown on my thoughts towards the legislation, is why not keep it the way it was, and why add this and just have, you could pay a penny for it and technically that's not a gimmick. Because my thought was, if you do set a price minimum, the price minimum is there to ensure some sort of fairness overall. But if that's not the purpose and it's just the dollar minimum, then I do see that fitting, and I do see it fitting to pass if the purpose isn't for fairness or equality, with there being no extra need in the code for legislation speaking more into proof of purchase, per se. So if that's the case, then I do stand in favor of this bill if the case is not for fairness, but more so rounding to the nearest dollar, like you said earlier, and keeping the minimum at $1.
Yeah, this was meant more for clarity's sake. Really, this shouldn't change the system too much. Currently, T-shirts are sold, and I would guess, and only from my experience around, is that those aren't $1. Normally, it's north of that. And so this is just putting a little more clear context what your price can be. But no, not so much. I wouldn't say this specific bill changes the election process as far as fairness and quality goes.
Well, they can be drafting this legislation, and they can cover laws as well.
Turn around.
On the human sciences, just had to make one clerical amendment. I know the rest of the code, typically when you list like a numerical value, it's the word and then the number. So under $1, do 1 and then parentheses 1 parentheses.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so now we'll be speaking on the amendment itself about the 1. Is there any more debate on that? Seeing no one, I move to a vote on the amendment. All in favor of carrying the amendment for the remainder of the debate, please say aye and click A. All opposed? All right, the ayes have it, and we will now consider this amendment. Senator Ward.
Yeah, I just wanted to, since James brought up a good point about the fairness, this bill is strictly to clarify and help candidates in order to keep T-shirts out of their budget. I realize that since there is a range of what candidates can charge, that does provide, different amounts of, I guess, income that they would make from the T-shirts. But this is strictly just to draw an explicit line on how much can be charged, price floor, price ceiling. Don't know, I'm not a business major, I don't know if I use those correctly. Okay, thank you. But that is what this amendment to the code is for, is just to make sure that there isn't a question on whether they can be given away or not.
All right, move to pass this bill as written.
Any other debate? Seeing no one, I move to a vote. All in favor of passing this bill, please say aye and click A. All opposed? The ayes have it, and this bill is adopted.
PSSB 2001-1303 campaign supporter charge.
This is brought to us Senator Ward.
All right, Ward Lawartz. So this bill is changing the amount of people that can be at each zone. This is just to cut back because we know 10 is still a lot, especially if we're on the concourse or in front of bus zones and things like that. So we wanted to cut it back just to make sure that there could still be representation, a lot of it, but not an overwhelming amount. And then the 6:30 a.m. was changed in order to just make sure that people were able to get there closer to when campus open, because I know 5 a.m. a lot of people were out there just hanging out and sitting, and it just kind of made for like a problem. And so they just wanted to make sure that it was closer to when people were coming to campus, when workers were going to be on campus, and stuff like that. So that is what this change is. Any questions?
Taylor Kuzma. I just had a quick question. So with regards to the time, is that talking about like people who will go out and kind of hang out on the concourse and maybe even spend the night out there beforehand? So would that make it against election law to be able to go out and do that?
Yes, that is the point, is to prevent people from kind of hanging out on campus when out of normal operational hours.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Senator Patel.
Where does that number 8 come from? I know that's kind of an arbitrary number, and we're cutting back on that, but just from my experience talking to other students, I mean, 8's a step towards the right direction, but I can guarantee you that half of the campus would like to see that number lower. So with that, was there any feedback feedback gotten obtained to get that number 8 right there?
So after talking with Lauren Urban, she said that it's really hard when you have people out there, because this is the same number that applies to the concourse. You're not allowed to have more than 8 people. So we didn't want to completely get rid of any representation as like if you had 5 or 6 people out there. We wanted to try and keep that number relatively large. So people on the concourse and having people at their station still had a lot of people being spread out there. But we did want to cut back because 10 is a lot to have if you have them stationed outside of transits or classrooms. It gets kind of crowded, especially if each group of people has 10 at like the concourse in front of louder, or the like batch concourse where people are going down on bikes. It's just a lot of people.
Not at large, I just got a quick clarification question. I noticed it says, within the hours of 6 AM to 5 PM, but voting extends until 7 o'clock. Is that right?
Yeah.
So is that something that's been in the code for a while now and people are just kind of ignored? Because I know most campaigns campaign until right at 7 PM.
Well, so during the days of like leading up to voting day, it's 5 PM, and then there's another section of the code, and I can find that. There's another section of the code that addresses voting day specifically, but that is 7 AM to 7 PM
Okay.
that you can vote.
All right, thank you.
Is this for campaigning for SGA or Miss Auburn homecoming?
It's across the board.
Okay.
So it'll affect all campaigns for Miss Homecoming, Miss Auburn, SGA, major candidates. I was gonna say minor, but.
Okay, great. So I actually have one critique about, from what I hear from my fellow students, on any type of election, especially for homecoming, Miss Auburn, we always feel like we're being almost stared down every 5 seconds around campus, asking, have you voted, have you voted? So maybe somewhere in these legislations, maybe we could restrict where people can campaign. From what I've seen on discussions on the subreddit and my fellow students, that maybe restricting only to the Haley Concourse or major arteries of where people walk, where people can campaign. Because usually when you're coming on campus and you're trying to go weave through the back alleys, you're still being bombarded with, have you voted? And it can get very tiring. So is there any way where we can address that?
I agree, and there are zones that are laid out. I think a lot of the reason that we have people kind of expand further than the Haley Concourse is because business students, especially at the upper level, they don't really come to the Haley Concourse unless they have to. So we just want to make sure that everybody gets to hear and see and talk. And sometimes the only way people hear major candidate platforms is if they talk to somebody about it, and if somebody's asked them. And it can be difficult when they get in nitpicky small situations, which is a reason we're trying to compromise by lowering the number there. But there are zones laid out within the code, and I can find those for you too.
Yeah, great.
My bad. And thank you for that. I think for Robert's rules, procedurally, just someone had to yield some time to anyone that needs to make a comment outside of Senator debate, I believe. But that's just how it is for future reference. It's not that. You're good. Senator Williams?
Yeah, we'll eat business. I was gonna say addressing the 8, I feel like it's also important to note that a lot of times when you have candidates with their supporters out there, what's encouraging for people to support candidates is that they can do it with their friends. And so 2 is a pair, and that's 2 less people going up to a pair. And so it doesn't seem like a big change, but it's still 2 more people that aren't chasing someone around. And also I think that it's attitude from the top when you have students staring down other students that are campaigning for someone. It's those campaign managers and those candidates telling their supporters, hey, be kind, hey, we're students, hey, they're busy too. And that's where we have to start with that to make students on campus more comfortable with us campaigning, because ultimately, a lot of times they don't know what's going on. It's up to us to go to them and say, hey, this is why I'm doing this, and making that personal conversation rather than just staring them down and beating their vote. So I think that's really our job as senators and as leaders to do that.
Senator Wagner?
Wagner business. I think one thing that's important to think about is whether the amount of people actually campaigning, whether it's 10 or 8 or 15 or whatever, is actually going to change when people are getting counted in the economic concourse, or whether that's boundaries that they can't cross. I know we have some, but I think that's one thing I'd like to bring to discussion is whether we actually think the number is the problem, or if it's more about where people can go, where they can.
Senator Kramer?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think this is the solution to all complaints that campaigning is a little excessive, but I do think that it's heading in the right direction. If oppressive campaigning is a problem, then limiting the number, I think would obviously contribute to eradicating that problem.
Any other debate? Senator Rogers?
So if there isn't any more questions or any further debate, I move to pass this bill as written.
Seeing no other debate, so this is now moving to a vote. All in favor of passing this bill, please say aye, click yea. All opposed?
No.
The ayes have it, this bill is adopted.
P, assist the 2001-1304 Concord Code Zone change.
This is also collected by Senator Ward.
All right, Board of Liberal Arts. So one thing that Lauren brought to my attention was that in the past couple of years, they've had the rule that campaigners can't occupy more than up to a certain line on the concourse, and they have like had diagrams and shown that, but it's never been in the code. So if people did cross that line, or people did like encroach further, like up to the student center, a violation couldn't be turned in because it wasn't in the code and people couldn't find it. So this year we've decided to implement it, which is why this bill was moved out, because we would like to have this in place, because we do want campaigners to be behind that line, and be mindful of the fact that people are trying to walk on the concourse and not spread out further, or try and hand things to people biking by that are clearly avoiding or walking by. So this is going in the code for that reason.
Senator Patel.
Patel would be great. So with this bill, how are we gonna stop campaign staffs from like lining up on one side and then one campaign staff lining up on the other side? So like alternating like that. I mean, there's nothing specified in here on what half they're allowed to stand on.
So in the campaign packets, it's shown and it tells them what line that they are supposed to, like, it's explicitly explained in that. And this is, like, I guess we could clarify in that occupying like only one side. Does that
So
make
how is that specified in the campaign packet? You know?
So there's a certain line, I think it's where the red brick ends on the side next to the early learning center and the houses and playgrounds and things like that. They're not allowed to cross over that.
Senator Taylor.
Taylor Joseph, I would just really, I don't know if I would make it, if I personally would make an amendment, but I would encourage someone to make an amendment, because this has come up in election council before about discrepancies on what side of the conference they're supposed to be on. I think it should be clarified on whether they're allowed on the side next to the Starbucks or in the Haley Center, or next to the side by that giant brick wall where the people were sitting normally. I think that should be put in place for election council's sake, to be able to look at the code of laws, to be able to make a firm decision if a violation is brought up.
Senator Wagner.
Wagner business. Also, I think we should maybe put Haley concourse in there, just because I don't know if there's different rules on which concourse you're on and which way is halfway. There's maybe some words to make it a little more specific.
Senator Willoughby.
Will it be business? So I was wondering, is it all campaigns are only allowed on one side of one course, so it's not like, so that wouldn't happen like what Senator Patel was saying?
Right.
Like you couldn't split half and half?
So yes, like according to this and along with the guidelines presented to them in the campaign packet, you're supposed to line up on one side and not cross over where the red brick ends. That's the line that is explained in the packet.
Senator Osborne. We're still up.
Okay, I was also gonna say, like, as far as like violations go, like how is that gonna be like controlled in any sort of way? Because I know that it's already been a problem with the 10 and I guess now 8 thing, like the picture situation, and like someone walks up to say hi to their friend and it's like, oh wait, they're in the same shirt, are they there, are they not? Like, I guess that's more maybe of a Lauren Irvin question, but like I just see that like big spiraling.
Senator Osborne.
Osmond Kosian, is there a way to make an amendment to say like which side of the concourse could change more often than the code should change. So maybe clarifying to reference the campaign packet when you're thinking of a violation, enforcement it. And also I agree with the Haley comments being added.
Brian?
Bryant Business, I just want to kind of piggyback on what Senator Willoughby was saying, just concerned about enforcement and then also kind of any possible change to campaign culture. And like she was saying, like how do we define what is a violation if someone is walking down the concourse on that side or goes over or is throwing something away, you snap a picture, it could be difficult to defend. And so I understand the need for this bill 100%, but enforcement and the details are concerned.
Motion to amend it to add Haley concourse, and then also, at the end of the sentence, you could say, as referred to in their, campaign packet.
Second.
How do you want
As referred to in their campaign packet. As one sentence. One sentence, yeah. Adding on.
Sarah,
None at large, Andrew, if I could just suggest, deleting the sentence where it says, as to allow us to individually walking through and just having the campaign staff know that if I want to have to walk down the Haley concourse as referred to in the campaign packet, and then you let the campaign packet make those decisions as to where it should be leading. But still make it hard and fast that if you do violate the campaign packet, it's a violation. No, I was just proposing that to him. I think he still has to motion to implement that since it's his.
yeah, we're still, yeah, we're debating it in the right now, so.
Motion to, pass these.
Wait, no, one second, my bad. Senator Hadley?
Huntley Human Sciences. So I totally see y'all's point, but I know that people also campaign on other concourses like Roosevelt and Thatch. So is this just going to apply to the Haley concourse, or is it going to apply to this as well?
So I know when Lauren presented this to me and the concern with it not being in the code, she specifically stated on the Haley concourse and that being, I think where, a lot of the problem is because I know in the past, like people have walked out or like gone up to bikers biking by so they can hand them something. And so she specifically explained it being on the Haley concourse, that it was the largest issue and that was where they wanted to address that in order to make sure it was clear there. So I think that the vendor for Haley concourse would be correct.
Going off that, I still think it's a disservice. I mean, if we're already going to change the Haley concourse, if the purpose of this bill is to make sure students have a place to walk, I feel like students need a place to walk all around campus. So just limiting it to the Haley concourse is kind of defeating the purpose of this bill in a whole. So I think, I would suggest that we take out Haley concourse or make it a way that it's more specific to all concourses.
Senator Beach?
I guess we're still debating mine and, can I amend mine then?
Yeah, yeah, we're still debating it, if you wanna, yeah, you can.
Yeah, okay, so we could say like, amended to where it says Haley concourses and other concourses and all other concourses. And then I guess we'd have to fix the wording issue as well, so it's not like a run-on.
The walkway and
So, walkway on the Haley concourse and other concourses, or just say all concourses. I guess we have any other thoughts on that?
Looking outward, so to my understanding, the code of laws for all major candidates has already been sent out. They're tested on it Wednesday. I do think this is a great idea, however, I think that we're trying to fix a bigger issue right now, in a small amount of time, and possibly if we could take more time to work on this,
just in order to make sure that we have the lines and zones marked out. So I do believe that maybe it'd be best that we table it since the code of laws has already been sent out to the major candidates. And I do want this to be explicit in making sure that everyone knows the rules and that we don't have to worry about it spiraling into something where people are just taking pictures to take pictures and file violations. So I'm gonna make a motion to table this. Second.
So we still need to vote on the amendments that were presented. So is this the final, is this your amendment? Is it how it's written up here? If you pass it, is it written up here? Is there any other debate on the amendments? Seeing none, we'll now move to a vote. All in favor of passing the amendments, please say aye. All opposed? No.
I need a few more y'all.
This is on the amendments, by the way. Okay, the ayes have it. So, we now have another, is there any other debate before?
Being engineering, I moved to amend the referred to specified because that was the long term and nothing was referred to in the first place.
So, we still have, you made the motion to table, correct? So, basically what happened is,
Okay, so you have to address things in order. So since she motioned to table before your amendment was presented, if it doesn't get tabled, we will address your amendment, but if it gets tabled, it'll basically make your amendment.
so now, is there any debate on tabling the, resolution?
Yeah, we did add, all concourses kind of as an afterthought, which made this a lot more complicated. But the bill as it was originally stated is already written in the campaign packet, which has been given to whomever. And so I think we're still, if I understood correctly, this is already stated in the campaign packet, so we're just trying to allow for violations to be made this year, this election, is that correct? I guess that would be a question for Hope to have to ask her. What's that?
So with this bill, the clarification and the need for it came from the fact that it was already in the code, and we did want to make sure that if a violation occurred, that it could be filed because it wasn't listed anywhere in the code that they couldn't cross the halfway point. But this came through very quickly, and hearing y'all's feedback, I do think it would be beneficial just for future, so nobody has to go back. And so we do our due diligence in that, that we explain and clarify all concourses and things like that, because it's not just a problem on the Haley concourse, but that was the problem that was brought to me. But I think this is a bigger issue than just on the Haley concourse. I'm repeating myself.
Is the Haley concourse the only place in the campaign packet where that rule is listed, or is that for any concourses?
I believe there is an explicit place on the Haley concourse, but I think this bill and the recommendation, when it just listed on the concourse, you're supposed to leave room for people to walk because they're trying to cut back on.
Well, because the campaign packet already states a similar thing, and we can't currently enforce that, I would still suggest that we pass this bill without other concourses to ensure that our campaign packet is safe.
Not at large. So I think the spirit of what is in the campaign packet for this bill is strictly just to say that the Haley Concourse is the only place on campus where every single campaign generally sets up shop for the entire day, and like no matter where other people are, there will always be people on the Haley Concourse with the way that things have been with elections past. And so I think that other concourses can be addressed later, but the point of it is that one place, which is a major thoroughfare for all students, needs to be somewhere that's accessible for everybody. And so we can still have this in here just saying that refer to the campaign packet for a violation so that it is enforceable if people do break that rule. and then we can address other concourses later, because honestly, in years past, other concourses haven't been a major problem when creating choke points like the Haley concourses. So I still think we should vote on this tonight because it is a great thing, I think, to have in the campaign packet for the upcoming election.
Okay, so we will now, move to vote on tabling. This is definitely, unless there's no more, is there more debate?
This is a kind of question for Senator Ward. So, does the campaign packet itself, like, is that what we hold people and say, if you break this, this is where you can be turned as a violation, or is it the actual code laws, where if you break code laws, then you get a campaign violation?
So when you break the campaign laws, they come from the code of law. So when you fill out a form, I don't know if you've seen a violation form, but there is a place for you to put where in the code they violated, which is why this hasn't been able to be filed in the past, because it's not listed in the code. So the things like having more than 10 people on the concourse, that would be section 1010.1.4 or 1.14. One of those, and you have to list it explicitly from the code, and that is what the standard is held to. It's not the campaign packet.
Okay, thank you, Nuts.
Any other debate? Okay, seeing no one, I move to a vote, so we're voting on table this indefinitely. All in favor of tabling this bill, please say aye, click A.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Okay, the ayes have it.
All right, ayes have it, this is tabled indefinitely. All right, so, I believe that is it for current orders of business, so we're now moving to future orders.
PSSB 20011301 gender neutral language code changes.
This brought by Senator Hawkins.
So all of these changes was just to like make the code like more gender neutral. So we changed like his and her to their, and she's and they, or whatever is like grammatically correct. So pretty much for all of them, like his and her, we changed to their for both of those. And then he or she has, they have, that one, and then just pretty much all of that is like gender neutral. So it can be more inclusive to people who like want to just like be more. So that's what all those are. If you have any questions, please let me know. I know there's some grammatical things I need to fix for one of them, so but I'll do that in the form.
PSSC 20011301 commendation for the same program.
This brought by Senator Casson.
So I'm just going to read this. It says commendation for the same program. Whereas the Auburn University Student Senate is vested with responsibility to serve as a voice of the student body, and whereas the first sexual assault nurse examiner program, same, was founded in 1976 in Memphis, Tennessee, and there was a noticed need for professionals in this area. The same program is a certification for nurses to effectively perform forensic examinations and to provide insight on how to aid victims for the acute and long-term consequences of sexual violence. And whereas in 1997, the Office of Victims of Crime, the OVC, component of the Office of Justice Programs of the U.S. Department of Justice, officially recognized the importance and effectiveness of SANE programs in forensic evidence collection, which led to the first SANE development and operation guide supported by the OVC, and by 2016, there were over 800 recognized SANE programs around the country. And whereas statistics like 1 in every 4 undergraduate women will be the victim of sexual assault, 1 in 16 undergraduate men will be the victim of sexual assault, and the American Civil Liberties Union publishing that nearly 95% of all campus rapes in the United States go unreported, show a direct need for SANE programs across the United States. And whereas SANE programs are not only in place on college campuses to collect better evidence, but also to be a victim center. SANE programs aspire to be a place where a victim can come to not only get examined, whereas the East Alabama Medical Center is the most accessible examination location for victims of sexual assault. The Auburn University Student Government Association and many colleagues have been actively working towards bringing a sexual assault nurse examiner program to the Auburn University Medical Clinic to make this examination much more proximal to the campus. And whereas the Auburn University Student Government Association is advocating for donations on this initiative to emphasize this need and garner support for years to come. Through fundraising, we will be able to show the importance of and raise awareness for this amazing program. Therefore, let it be known that we, the Auburn University Student Senate, fully and truly support the same program and its partnership with the Auburn University Medical Clinic, East Alabama Medical Center, and all contributing parties who made strenuous efforts to carry out this needed initiative to shift the culture on college campuses and around the country by implementing this valuable resource into our community. Right. And those are my CCs, and there was a lot of research that went into this. We used a lot of different sources, governmental sources, and so it really, this means a lot to me, and I think a lot of people in this room and on this campus. So if you have any questions about it, just please let me know. Sure.
So that is it for legislation. So now we're on to announcements. So a couple things from me. One, thank y'all for the semester. I'm very enjoying. I've really grown through it. I hope y'all grown through it as well. I know we still got next semester left, a little bit, so we'll still get done what we need to, but stay motivated, continue to do what you can over this next week. I know we have priority one, and hitting up all night, going up next week. Great events, so we can reach out to students that generally don't come to SGA events. We really don't see those students as often, so make sure to take advantage of that, and it's really just good time to be able to reach out to constituents as well, also helping out with academic affairs as well, so that'll be very important. If you have any questions over this next week, I'll be in my office a lot more than usual, just trying to find more time to close out the semester, help out with any of your initiatives, so just shoot me a text or a call before you want to come through. I'll be available as much as possible. Ring night is this Thursday at 6:56. Really cool tradition. I wish Kat could have came and talked about it, but it'd be really appreciated if any of y'all want to attend that, or ring ceremony, which is Sunday at 2 p.m. to help out. Really just experience it as well. As Senator Huntley said, city exec will be this Thursday, so please attend. I don't want you all to have a half absence on the way out of the semester, so finish strong. Like she says, the conference room be at 7 p.m. Yeah, so I know school's about to be winding down, so make sure you clear your finals. Do what you can. If I can help out in any way, please let me know. But yeah, that's it.
Alright, last 3 pointers of the year. So we're going to do similar to how we started the year, we're getting to write down 3 things. Will Capstock's going to help me out, and we're going to pass out index cards, and we'd like each of y'all to write down your favorite memory of the semester, one lesson you learned from SGA that will prepare you for your future career, as well as a goal that you have for next semester. So we're just going to leave some index cards at the start of each table.
Everybody hear what that? Everybody hear what Pearson said?
Y'all don't mind writing your names on them, and then you can just leave them, and I'll pick them up right at the end. So thank y'all for a great semester.
Alright, we're about to move to adjournment. Alright, so if you could, once you're done with that. finished. We're gonna move to adjournment, so please pick up your iClickers and click out. Okay. All right, seeing no more business, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you all for the semester.
Oh, the first one.